Neatsfoot oil is a compound of rendered and purified fatty acids from the shin bones of bovine animals, often called cattle. It's called neatsfoot because the Old English word neat meant cattle or oxen. Thus, cattle foot oil was referred to as neatsfoot oil. It's used primarily as a conditioner for leather, where the fatty acids in liquefied form can help the oils penetrate into the leather fibers and then help restore some of those oils and fats and to retain moisture that is often lost from day-to-day use. It's usually available in pure form, like this, 100% pure, and also in blends. The blended versions often combine it with petroleum-based compounds and synthetic oils, making the pure neatsfoot oil the version of choice. If it's to be used on leather items, this is going to be especially important to help them from wearing down and breaking down sooner. So it's cool, it's been around forever, it's neatsfoot oil, right? Everyone says to use it. So let's check out exactly what is in it. So mostly it's going to be composed of fatty acids. It's about 67% of oleic acid, around 17% of palmitic acid, around 9% of palmitoleic acid, 3% stearic acid, and then 4% of others. Whoa, that's a lot of numbers and long words. Let's take a look at it. So here we go. We're going to check it out close up so you can see what's really going on. Let me see if I can get, there we go. So when we see it, it's relatively viscous. And you can kind of see it pooling up a little on the bottom there. So it's very much like a liquidy oil, not too heavy. That's the look of it. So let's actually use it as we do it. So a big thing with neatsfoot oil is that it's usually mentioned that it will darken leather, right? Just like other oils that are put on it, it's going to change the color a little bit, essentially because you're putting moisture into it, like a t-shirt. You know, if you're outside and you're in the rain or you're playing a sport, when that t-shirt gets wet, it usually looks a little bit darker. And so the leather does that as well. When there's moisture in there, it's going to give it a little bit of a darker, richer color. So for applying neatsfoot oil, there's a few different things we could do. One is the most common is going to be your cotton cloth here. And then another, you could use like a cosmetic sponge or something because it'll absorb and also has some good density. For here, just because it's a quick example, I'm going to show you the tried and true cotton method. So here, basically I'll just take the bottle, put the cotton over it, and just tip it back and forth, and that's going to give you some of that neatsfoot oil right there on your cloth. And so if we take our leather piece here, and then we rub it on, here's one rub, you can see the oil is already coming off. And then we can kind of continue to do that to put this on. And you can see where we started to had more concentration, you know, more oil is going into those open fibers, and it's kind of filling that in like that. And so what you can do is just, again, come back here, get a little more oil on your cloth, and then put it down and kind of rub it around. You want to be careful too, because in this method you have a lot of concentrated oil in that middle part of the cloth, right? So we could see right where we put it down initially, it's darker, even there too. So try to even that out, and that's where something like the cosmetic sponge may come in handy, because you can kind of dip it here into that oil, get a little bit, and then you can kind of almost more evenly kind of go over it. You're still going to have some of those areas where you're initially putting it on there, but that's another option as well, just to show you that as a way to go. But here we can kind of do this, and then very often, if you want, you can apply multiple coats, so see how one is, if you want something darker, or if you want it more even, because maybe you put a little bit too much in one area in the beginning, you could certainly go over it and kind of saturate it so it's even. What you want to be very careful about is not putting too much in, because this is oil and it's not really going to evaporate, nearly as easily as water. And so if you drench your leather with oil, it will absorb it for the most part until it's saturated. And then guess what? Like anything else, if you move it or bend it or squeeze it, that oil is going to come out. And that may be onto your clothing, onto your furniture, if you're using it for like a belt or something like that. So just keep that in mind. like don't put too much. That'll, pretty much result in undesirable characteristics. So you could do a little bit, and then if you want to add more, you can do a little more during your first coating, or you could let it dry, see how it looks, and then decide if you want another lighter coating or a few more on there. So you could see it's going to make a pretty big difference between color. Your unoiled leather, and then now you've got your Neatsfoot oil on here. Now this is wet, right? So what does it look like once it dries? So I've got here another piece that's dried for around 24 hours, and you can see how that color is going to change over that time. So here we have our initial one, here we have our freshly applied, and then here we have when it's had about a day to dry. So when we compare our unoiled to our day dried oiled, we do see a little bit of a difference. And we could even see that on this, one piece where I left a little bit not oiled. So it is going to make the leather a little bit darker, and depending how you look at it, that may make the color a little bit richer. So it really all depends on what you're trying to do. But most importantly, know that if you've got something that you want to add Neatsfoot oil to, it will darken it from its original color in general. So here's the original one, here's the freshly applied one, and then here's the dried for 24 hours one, which will generally be what your color will look like after an application, that's fully dried. So if you're looking to restore flexibility to some leather, this can be an option to do that. If using a compound blended with synthetic oils, not the 100% pure Neatsfoot oil, that could actually lead to the fibers weakening over time. Neatsfoot oil generally has a higher pH than leather. So if we look here at our pH scale, leather is around 4.5 to 5. And Neatsfoot oil and mink oil are around the higher end of the 6. So even though it's only about 1 off, that's actually going to cause a acid-base reaction, which will release a little bit of salt, a little bit of water, and actually slowly begin the degradation process of those leather fibers. And so is that going to do it instantly in a day or a month? Like the effects on a microscopic level will begin, though it's not going to make the leather instantly deteriorate, obviously, right? We have decades and potentially centuries of people using Neatsfoot oil, and it doesn't, spontaneously just go poof. So keep that in mind, mainly depending on what you're going to use it for. If you're using it for something that's going to be actually used, then this can be great because it's going to put oils in there, keep it flexible, things like that. If you're looking to use it for something that you're going to want to keep as like an archival thing or an heirloom thing or for decades or hundreds of years, then maybe consider not using Neatsfoot oil and something that's going to be a little more pH neutral to help kind of put that moisture in. So it really depends on use, because where it'll be great for some things, it may not be great for others, but it's really not an all or nothing. It can be phenomenal in the right cases. So we've got some looks into Neatsfoot oil, what it is, a few different application methods, what it looks like, going for the pure version, and then importantly too, how it looks and changes your leather color from when you have nothing on it to when you first apply it to when it dries out. Also keeping in mind, pH is important, and if you have any questions about Neatsfoot oil, or if you have any experiences with it, I'm sure you probably do, definitely share. This will make some really good conversation. And there you have it. Until next time.